Welcome to the Crown City Podcast. I'm your host, James DiPietro. From Pasadena, California, this is a show about building a community for all and the neighborhoods we call home. On this episode, I'm proud to welcome City Council Member Tyron Hampton from District 1. Councilmember Hampton, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this opportunity. First time being on the podcast.
Well, we are very excited to have you. We have a full staff today. We're all looking forward to this conversation, and so we appreciate you making the time. So I thought we'd start the conversation with a little bit of background on you. If you could share about kind of where you grew up and how you grew up, and I think that would be a great way to start the conversation.
So I'm sixth generation Pasadena. Actually, it's funny. I say that every time, but I'm actually fifth generation Pasadena. My children would be sixth generation Pasadena. So I'm born and raised here, but I guess the number 6 just kind of like rings a lot better. But after I did the math, I was like, nah, brother, you 5 and your kids are 6. So I was adding them and making me that. So yeah, but born and raised here. Went to Cleveland Elementary, which is now closed. I've also went to Washington Middle School and John Muir High. Took classes concurrently at while I was at John Muir and PCC at the same exact time. My grandfather, my mother, and my great-grandfather also went to John Muir High School. So I know you have some interns here that went to PHS, no offense, to make sure that you get the right side. Make sure you make me look good at all times. I love you guys too. I love the PHS Bulldogs. I believe blue and gold, and true to nature, Pasadena is home and has been home to my family for, like I said, 5 generations and 6 now with my children.
I've had more guests that have gone to Muir than any other place. So I've had so many guests that have gone to Muir, and everyone speaks so highly of the school.
It's an amazing school, for a long time I didn't think there were any other schools in Pasadena, and then I found out about PHS, and I was like, what is this? No, just playing. No, there's an intern here, by the way, because if anybody's watching or listening, there's an intern here that I'm just kind of making fun with. She's a high school student right now at PHS, so it's the rivalry is real. There's
still going.
There's love there, definitely a lot of love in it, and that's part of what builds community, right? Just to have those differences that actually bring us together,
right.
And they're not really differences that that are things that bring, but they're more so things that bring us together and just kind of like we make fun of it. It's a lighthearted joke, but at the end of the day, we want to see one another succeed. If you come from out of Pasadena, I don't care where you are in the world. If you say that you're from Pasadena, somebody's like, oh man, you from Pasadena? Oh, let me look out. Let me try to help you out with this. I mean, that's in my own personal life and my business life. Anytime I've ever ran into someone who's actually been from Pasadena, no matter what school they went to, they're always like, okay, they came from the same place that I came from.
Yeah.
And so I want to look out for them.
Very nice. Yeah. Based on your experience and your commitment to the community, you must have had really some really strong influences in your life. So who are some early mentors that were especially important to you?
My father. I give a lot of who I am to my father. My father is an amazing business person, but not just an amazing business person, just an amazing human being. And I always think to myself that if I am 10% of what he is, I will be a great man. I do believe that if you have something to look forward to each and every day, that this level of optimism is sustainable. And so I always have something to look forward to, and even those things that we would see, like my aunt, that are typically, you would think of it as a negative or not a gift. It's also a gift, and it's also part of the journey of life. So I just look at it in that perspective and always look for a silver lining. Like throughout COVID, my silver lining was, this is an opportunity for me to reach out to cousins and family members and neighbors that I haven't talked to in a while. So, and I learned how to swim during COVID. So
did you really?
Yeah.
You didn't know how to swim before?
I did not know how to swim before, and that's a long story, and that's probably a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, and I learned how to swim at the aquatic center here in Pasadena.
Oh, nice.
So I have an amazing story and background to share about that, and just big thanks to all of the folks that helped the journey along, and didn't realize how the small thing of learning how to swim, how that would just completely open up my mind to the possibilities of what the human body can do, can create when we separate ourselves from our fears.
Yeah, that's true. Well, after Muir, you went to Cal Poly Pomona.
I did.
So what did you want to do as a career before you came back to Pasadena?
So I have a so I knew what I was going to do. I knew that I wanted to go into the floor covering business, um, or janitorial business, because my grandfather and my father, I always really looked up to them, like I said earlier. So I knew that I wanted to do that. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got to college. I knew that I needed to go to college. And the reason I knew I needed to go to college was because there were so many people that literally died for me to go to college, for me to get a fair education in the system, what we call America. That is America, but um, and they died for that. And so I just felt that I felt it was an obligation for me to go to college, and I didn't know what I was going to do when I before I got out of college, and I didn't know what I was going to do when I got to college. When I got to college, I had a couple of different majors in the beginning, and then my dad always tell me like, don't throw all of your eggs in one basket. And I took that literally. Like my second quarter at Cal Poly Pomona, I took that literally, and I said, eggs basket, eggs basket. Those are all agricultural products. I'm going to go to school for agriculture. Everybody's got to eat, so I'm gonna be all right no matter what. I was like, that's a good backup plan if this floor covering thing doesn't work out.
Because they have a really good ag program.
It's an amazing ag program, and it's actually a amazing construction management program.
Do they really?
And me being a contractor, a floor covering contractor, most construction in California, most job site managers, most construction managers all went to Cal Poly Pomona.
Really?
Another connection that I have outside of being a Pasadena resident is saying that I went to Cal Poly Pomona. It opens up so many doors for me. It's the alumni in the construction fields, whether it be healthcare, whether it be sports flooring, whatever it is, the alumni in from Cal Poly Pomona in construction fields, it is second to none. I mean, huge.
What do you think makes Pasadena such a really important place and a special place for people to live, especially for families?
I think the most important thing about Pasadena, which is probably the coolest thing, is that everybody's connected. Like we all know someone who knows someone who could get us to the person that we want to get to. It is a big city, but we have like this really country town feel. And I know a lot about country towns because I spent a lot of time in the South. Um, for my father's from Arkansas, my mother's from Pasadena. So I spend a lot of time in the South, and I resonate with the South because everybody's connected there. And one of the things that brings me back to Pasadena is that we have so many connections. Even how we were just kind of joking about the mere PHS thing, right? I mean, that connection itself, right, is something that bridges us and brings us together.
It does.
So I think that's the most beautiful thing about our city is how we are all connected.
When you ran for the Pasadena Unified School District Board,
Mm-hmm.
you talked about it was a divine calling. And can you talk a little bit about the calling to public service and why you thought that was important?
If you'd asked me this 10 years ago before I ran, Tyron, are you thinking about running? No, not thinking about it at all. Me and my wife spent some time out of the country, and every time I would go somewhere, in my 20s, people would say, are you a delegate? And I'm a delegate of what? Like, no, I'm just here for vacation. We just coming out. Like, delegate, what is that? Like, they would always say, are you a representative? These are people that don't know English or know English, but, just having the personal connection with them. And so, fast forward to I was in Japan at the time. I was in Tokyo, and I wasn't getting any cell phone service. And one of my friends gave me a call. And my father always told me he thought I would be he was like, you're a really great listener. And I was like, I don't know if I'm a good listener or I just know how to not say anything, when people are talking because I have all sisters. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you know, if you
very much so.
you know, because you don't talk in the middle of them talking. It's like it will prolong the conversation, right? Like so. So I was like, I don't, but my father even said that, and so one of my friends gave me a call and he said, hey, there's an opportunity for you to run for school board, and I told my wife about it, and I said, this is a joke. I kind of laughed about it, hung up, and I said, yeah, give me a call back tomorrow. By the way, please let my mom know I'm doing okay because I'm not able to get in contact with her for some reason, and I have no idea why your phone call is ringing. Right? I can't get in contact with my mom. He calls me back the next day, right? And I was like, what is this guy calling? Like, why are you calling me right now? Like, and why is my phone ringing? Because it hadn't been ringing, right? And he said, okay, I got more information for you. There's districts, and the district that you would represent would be a district called District 3. And in District 3 of the school board, you would represent these schools. And I said, okay, what are the schools? He said, Cleveland, Washington, and John Muir High School. And I said, wow, that was what it was. It was that, and also the same time while I was in Tokyo, someone asking me, was I a delegate? Right? I mean, or was I a representative of a elected official, or was I elected? And I was like, no, I'm not. And it just all came together, and I just said, you know what? To my friend, I said, unless someone with like some crazy PhD education field, like I mean, just extremely qualified. I'd be willing to, put my hat in the ring, and do it because my grandfather went to all these schools. My mom went to those schools. I went to those schools. My great grandfather went to the same high school as I. And I just said, being so, you know, I would say so, entrenched in this community, or feeling like this community is bigger than just me, right? I mean, I feel like a part of who I am and the character of who I am has a lot to do with the folks here in Pasadena. And I said, I'll run, I'll do it. And so I ran, and it was not easy. And I was outspent 8-1. But like I said, I believe in a divine intervention, and God put that in front of me and said, hey, I got some people that I want you to listen to. And if you take this, and the journey wasn't easy, it's not going to be an easy journey. If you take this journey, you'll be successful no matter what they put up against you. And I mean, all of my opponents, anything I've ever ran, they've had like so many endorsements. I'm like, how do you get ex-governors? Where do you find these folks? You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you get governors to give you endorsements? You know, like,
I don't even know what the process is like.
exactly. I'm like, do you email them? Do you find them at the market? Like, oh, where are they going to be at? Like, where's Gray Davis at today? Like, So yeah, I mean, it was a surreal feeling. It was interesting, and the community resonated with my story, resonated and believed, you know, being young, right? Believed that I had something that I could bring to the table, and I appreciate them giving me that opportunity. And then from there, of course, to city council, and I was only on the school board for 2 years, but the things that I said I want to accomplish, I believe that timing is everything, right? My wife is an amazing scientist, and she found the seventh step. I think it was the seventh or eighth step of vitamin C synthesis. So she's published in Nature, and this was while she was at UCLA in her undergrad. And she went on to Caltech and got her PhD, the fifth Black woman to get her PhD from Caltech, and we both went to Muir, right? I mean, we're both Pasadena products. Um, but the timing was perfect. And I say that because at the same time she found her patent, right? Like someone else found the same exact steps that she 3 days later.
Hmm.
was doing the same exact research. So it was really timing. And so when I got to city school board, we had a computer ratio of like, I think it was like 78 computers to one child. So yeah, so one computer to every 78. And then when I left, it was 1-to-1 computer ratio. And some kids were able to take their Chromebooks home with them. So, and then also school sites didn't have Wi-Fi. When I left, every school site had Wi-Fi. So there were a lot of things. And then also the PCC mirror, that was the biggest connection that I made with, of course, with the help of other colleagues that also believed in that. But I think that I might have been the piece to turn it in to reality because no one really knew what it would be like. Because I said, I was at John Muir High School. I had to get a ride from John Muir every single day to PCC to take classes. How do we do this? I'm fortunate to have sisters. I'm fortunate that my parents were able to give my sisters a car to make sure that I could get transportation. I'm pretty sure they did it for reasons better than I can think of right now. Like, I mean, logistically, like, they're working, they got older kids, pick up your little brother. So I mean, it made sense for them for sure. But I'm fortunate to have that, right? And not everybody is. So how do we create something where all kids have this same exact path that I was able to take, and even beyond that? And so at Muir, we got kids graduating this year. 8 kids graduated with AA degrees, and multiple AA degrees. And at the price of college these days, having 2 years or all those college credits is significant to, making sure that the barrier of economics is not in the way of continued success. So just really excited about, what's going on in PUSD right now in general with and PCC with the partnership that is now offered at all high schools.
That's amazing. And PCC is such an untapped resource locally. I think about my time in college. I probably could have erased 2 years of my college by going to PCC and saved my parents a ton of money and saved myself 2 years of, stress. But I think people need to know that there's an incredible institution here in Pasadena. And like you said, there's the incredible opportunities for high school students at PCC, which, I mean, if you graduate with a degree, an AA degree, from high school, I mean, you're a leg up.
Yeah, you are. I mean, you are. You got so many extra credits, potentially 2 years shaved off of your major, your degree, which is a 4-year university. So you get to the university, you only have 2 years there or less. So, you know, I don't, when I got to school, it took me 4 years anyways, even though I had college courses, but that's because I was working full time while I was in college. And also I wanted to try to figure out how to have a little bit of a college experience because most of my friends, we all graduated high school at the same time, right? So it was like we were going to be in college for the same amount. And I know that having experienced my sisters, right, being out of college prior to me, I was like, man, work is real. Right? I was like, let me milk this college thing as long as possible, bro.
Push off the real world.
Hey, for real. I was like,
Couple
I
years.
milk this. I was like, I never liked books this much. Well, I'm gonna keep on reading.
Well, your journey from the school board continued to the city council, and you were just reelected. You ran unopposed, which is an incredible accomplishment. When you think about things that are Pasadena is facing right now, we're seeing, rises in prices. You've been very vocal about voting against some of the increases, which I appreciate being a homeowner and someone that works and lives in Pasadena. But we have, rising prices. We have a homeless issue that, housing affordability, which is a major concern. What do you think are the biggest challenges here in Pasadena that we face currently?
I think one of the biggest challenges that we're going to face is to make our goal of 2030, carbon free. Uh, we're getting close to it though. I mean, like we're like 95% by 2028, which is amazing. But that extra 5% is something else that I've been talking about at the council level, as we were just talking about rising rates. We haven't seen a power rate increase. Um, there will be a power rate increase. I think that we're doing the right thing for not for just our community, but for the future of what Pasadena is, but for the future of the broader, right, the broader world, and for our youth. And so, do I think that the prices will eventually level out? Yeah, I think they're going to level out, but I think that we have to pay for some of the mistakes that have been made in the past, um, that have polluted our world and our environment. We have to the world is our mother, and we should treat it that way. You wouldn't, give your mom, if you can give your mom gold, you're gonna give your mom gold,
Right.
right? No matter who you are, you're gonna you do whatever you will for your mom or your parent or whoever that guardian is that brought you up. You would do whatever you could for them, and I think that's how we should treat this world, and that's how we should treat our earth. And so, I think our city council agrees with that. I think it's going to be a challenge, but it's not a challenge that we in Pasadena um, can overcome. And I know that we will overcome it. Some of our other challenges are we have older infrastructure. We're an older city, right? Our rates, as I mentioned, I voted no against the rates. It wasn't the fact that I didn't agree that increases were necessary. I didn't agree how we went about the increases, right? And so those increases are coming, no matter what, and that's ultimately the whole council. So my no vote means nothing, right? It's just it's a so now it's how do we figure out to make it less impactful on you in general. And so those are going to be the next things I'll be working on is, what other fees can we try to alleviate if it's getting permits, can we drop some of the fees? I'm looking at that, dropping some of the fees and some of the permits, trying to make it a little easier to live here, but at the same time people still want a beautiful city. They want sidewalks repaired, they want streets fixed, they want their water to turn on when it turns on, they want their power to turn on, they don't want brownout days. And so we're managing all that. We have had a couple of interim directors. So, but our city manager has been, steering the ship, and we have some institutional knowledge with Brenda Harvey Williams, Nicholas Rodriguez, David Reyes as assistant city managers. So I think we are strategically placed in a good place, but can we be in a better place? Of course, I think every day we should always look to be better than we were yesterday, and that's what I strive to be. And so I will. There's more to come on that. I will be working to make sure that, and I will continue to work to make sure that the average everyday resident is not extremely burdened by high cost. And if there are increases, it's important that we make sure that these increases are consistent and not increases that are just like, okay, well, for 12 years you've been doing great and this is what you've been on, and then now you're on a fixed income and you didn't budget for that. We need to make sure that our residents are prepared to budget for these things, because I talk to residents all the time and they say they feel like they've been priced out, and it's not priced out of necessarily Pasadena, but of course everything is local, right? So the first thing is like, I've been priced out of Pasadena, but the truth is a lot of people feel like they've been priced out of the whole entire state. And how do we get back to really just focusing on the people's needs and not all of these pie and some things are, I wouldn't say they're pie in the sky ideals, but there are some initiatives, right, that are not always fully supported by the complete public, and politicians will push their agenda because they believe that's what the public wants. And I think sometimes, I think not sometimes, all politics are local, right? And then we have the national that kind of overshadows some of this stuff. And so people think about the problems that they had nationally, and they say this is a problem in Pasadena. It's like that's not the problem in Pasadena. And so we shouldn't be trying to solve problems that we don't have. We should be fixing and maintaining and building community, and constantly building community, because what we talked about earlier is how everybody's connected here in Pasadena. If we don't continue to build on that and build on that community, that connection will be gone, and Pasadena will just be a city. Right. And it won't be that place that I know as home. And I want that for my child. I want that for these interns that are here. I want them to feel like when they go off to get their college degree, they feel like this is the place that they want to come back to raise their family or to be a part of this community or whatever they decide they want to do.
Well, I think you and I were probably raised very similarly, where my father, my mother as well, my grandparents were very civic minded, very grassroots, kind of meat and potatoes, kind of the government, it functions to fix the potholes and all that kind of stuff, right? So you gotta address those fundamental needs before you kind of address kind of the larger issues. And you mentioned something which was interesting, which was politics is local. And it seems like when I'm 44, so I'm a little bit older than you. I think because you're
41.
41. Okay.
Yeah. We're the same generation.
But I felt like when we were growing up, politics was local. Now it's changed in the last 20 years where local politics is now national, and then like local politics is now like international, where like the city council, took a position on the war in Gaza, for example. That's a whole nother conversation, but it shows that these issues that are national issues, that are international issues, make their way into Pasadena. And I think your comment about focusing on what we can control here in Pasadena is really essential.
Yeah.
Because this is what we have control over. We can't control what DC is doing. We can't control what's going on in Ukraine or Gaza, unfortunately, as much as we like to. But the things that we can tangibly control are here in Pasadena. I think that's what we need to focus on.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And I think that we should keep our focus on the things that we actually have control over. I always tell my colleagues, like, I'm not taking responsibility for things I have no control over. Right. And I think that's unfair. And it's unfair for our residents because there's so many things that we need to be working on as a community. And, sometimes we're talking about things that we don't necessarily have any control over, but we are responsive. And I think that's part of the reason why you see some of these things on the agenda, because ultimately the job is to work for the people. It's not what Tyron personally wants, because there are so many things you'd probably be like, oh my gosh, he really went in on this. And then if you went home and you asked my wife, she'd be like, I saw your meeting and what were you thinking about that? I'm like, like you really had all the points. And I was like, because that's what my residents want, right? It's not about what Tyrone wants. It's about what my residents want. And so I think that's where we were, like at the council level. Like we have hundreds of people coming to a meeting and saying, hey, you know what? We want you guys to take this up. It's like, okay, at that point, let's take this up so that our residents know that we are hearing them.
That's great.
Right? And because that's what makes Pasadena is us having that connection. And I think if we just ignore it, then we could find ourselves right in a position where we lose that connection. But I do think that our focus should be on, and I say this all the time, I say our focus should be on the things that we actually have control over, right? And what changes can we make, right? And here, like I remember the whole entire minimum wage conversation, right? And out of the conversation during the minimum wage, and we're talking about the state. Everybody's talking about the state. The state, we need to increase this. We need to increase the state. It's so expensive to live in the state of California, and in California. And I'm like, this is Pasadena. I get that, right? You're talking about state, national things, but can we control something in Pasadena? How are people living in Pasadena? It's like, okay, we need to work on this. But what I kept on hearing over and over was a reoccurring theme. Every speaker, like I'm not going to say every speaker, I'm going to say 80% of the speakers was, I worked and I wasn't paid for the hours that I worked for, which we call wage theft. And that was a reoccurring theme. And I said, okay, so we're going to fix it by increasing people's salary, right? But have no mechanism in place to make sure that they're getting paid for the hours that they work for. So that's one thing I worked on, was saying, okay, we're going to have a wage theft division with the city attorney's office. And if anyone is pocketing or stealing your wages, and you have, our city attorney's office will go after them. So that's, that was one of the things I would say that came out of that, because when you stop, and as I said, you have all sisters, you got to listen. But when we stop and actually listen to what people are saying, it's deeper than um, the the bullet points, right? It's deeper than the chant. When you stop and listen to what they're saying, you can get down into some of the gritty parts of it and say, okay, you know what? This is a bigger issue, and what can we do to try to figure it and combat this bigger issue through policy? And that's one of the things that we came up with, and that's one thing I'd say I'm super proud of. Because the whole council at the time, we just kept on talking about the minimum wage, minimum wage, minimum wage, but everybody kept on talking about how their wages were being stolen because they were working hours that they weren't getting paid for.
Interesting. We've talked about District 1 being the heart of Pasadena. Can you talk a little bit about your district?
So when I say it's the heart of Pasadena, I mean that. Born and raised in the area, I think of Pasadena, like I said, this small town community. My elementary school teacher, fourth grade teacher, Miss Vestal, lived on a street, Los Robles. And every time I would walk out, right, it didn't make a difference what me and my friends were doing. Miss Vestal would be like, Tyron, Derek, Gerardo, what you guys doing? Right? Like, and we're like, we ain't doing nothing. We are just walking home. Like we're doing, but you know what? After years, I think it might have been like the sixth grade, is when I realized it wasn't her asking us what we were doing, right? It was just her letting us know, I care about you guys and I'm watching out for you, right? And there were so many other neighbors that would come out and say hello and talk to us. And um, that's what, I'm so sorry. I totally lost track of the question.
Well,
What
we're
was the
talking about the
question?
first district and how it's special.
Oh, okay. So how special? So that's what makes this first district extremely special, is that there are so many folks that just look out for one another and look out for kids. Even still to this day, like my daughter was walking home. Like she asked me, like, can you drop me off here on the corner, Daddy? And I'm gonna walk from here. I'm like, okay, I'll drop you off on the corner. So, and she's like, just drive away. I'm like, I'm not going to just drive away. Okay. Because, so I drop her off the corner and I walk up and I just kind of follow and trail behind her, right? You know how many people stopped to ask, was she okay? And my daughter would just like stare at them like blank face. I'm like, tell them I'm your dad. Please tell them I'm your dad. Like, and then they would see me. They're like, oh, Tyrone. Oh, like, Peyton, do not do that because they're going to call the police on me. It's not going to, like, because this is weird that I'm following you home, right? Like, so yeah, I mean, that's what's so special to me about the first district, is this, that, you have neighbors that will literally, they have avocado tree, they have orange tree, and they're like, I got some oranges. I'm dropping them off. During the pandemic, I have an avocado tree. I just picked a whole bunch of avocados off my tree and I put them in bags. And I just walked down the street with my daughter and we would just drop off like 5 or 6 avocados to everybody, put them on the front porch in paper bags, and tell them how to, how to make sure, because I have really thin skin. It just had little directions in it. It was just like something that we would do. But it's something that we were doing before the pandemic as well. Right. And so, I think that's what makes it the heart of Pasadena. When I say the heart, I mean, like, you can't pump blood without the working class, right? And you're not going to get a whole bunch of people from District 1 or District 3 or District 5 or some parts of Pasadena to show up because they're like, okay, I'm raising a family. I got, 3 jobs, I'm working, but I do really care about the community that I live in. And here are the things that I am able to do. You're not going to get them to come to a city council meeting, right? So that's the reason why I have all of my community meetings in the neighborhood. Like I literally will meet with neighbors on the block. Like we're going to meet on the corner. And then we're going to walk maybe a mile and a half sometimes 3/4 of a mile, depending on how many older people that I have in the group, right? Because just don't want anybody to feel like, well, I went to a community meeting and also got a workout. I do want you to get a workout. That's the reason why we do this. But there's no excuse, right? I want to make it as easy as possible. And people say the city hall is open to you. Like, great, everybody's welcome to go to city hall. You do that. But I want City Hall to come to you. I want you to know that City Hall is yours, right? I want you to know that the Rose Bowl is yours. I want you to know these things. I want you not to feel like, oh, these are parts of Pasadena that they're not really the part of Pasadena that I'm supposed to be a part of. I want you to know that. And so when I say the heart of Pasadena it's because without the folks working, doing day-to-day work, making sure there's children in our schools, et cetera, because most of the kids live in the district as well. There wouldn't be a city, right? So our heart of our city it comes out. So we're pumping blood into this city, and that's why I think the first district is the heart of the city, and that's I leave it at that. And also people say Tyron, you never say he never says Northwest. It's like I don't, because geographically, if you know geographics, we don't live in Northwest Pasadena. Like, it's not the northern west. I mean, it just doesn't make geographical sense. I mean, you can look at a map. Any geographer would tell you this is not geographically northwest, right? I mean, so I could see if you're all the way in East Pasadena, you're like, oh, and that's where it ended. Yeah, that would make sense. But I call it the heart of Pasadena for that purpose. So people know that that's how we should treat it. We should take care of our heart. And also, I call it east of the Arroyo, because I'm just like, okay, I don't want anybody to feel like they're being treated less than, right? And so if you feel like someone is saying, oh, west of the Royal, and you feel like they're getting more services, or this is a perception, this is a feel, right? I get a chance on my side to see that it's equal services, but there's a difference between equal and equitable.
There is.
Right. And so I wouldn't say that services are equitable based on the density, but they are equal services. But how do we make sure that they are equitable based on the density and the needs of the population? And so that's what I'm going to constantly focus on, is making sure that we are doing things in an equitable manner, not always necessarily equal.
Well, one of the things I love about District 1 is that you have small businesses. And I love Lincoln Avenue. It's probably one of the most beautiful streets in the city, I think. And you have people like Perry Bennett that risked literally everything to open Perry's Joint. You have small businesses like I Like Coffee and Semolina Pasta,
Yeah.
which went in. Leah from Semolina was on this podcast years ago. So I have a kind of affinity for them. But we have these incredible opportunities for small businesses, but it's hard to run a small business here in Pasadena. How do you think we can encourage people, especially women or people of color, to open businesses or grow their businesses here in Pasadena?
Part of the barrier of opening a small business or starting a small business is government red tape, right? The amount of paperwork is overwhelming for some. And so we are working at ways at streamlining that, because, being a business owner myself, knowing the processes of some of the paperwork, et cetera, and things that have to go into it. So working with city staff to try to streamline that, to make sure that you could open up your business in a timely manner, because if you're a small business owner, like you said, Perry threw it all into it. His all might have not been able to give him 3 more months, right? If you want to start a business, on average, depending on the business, say it's restaurant business, on average, and if it wasn't previously a restaurant, this time frame would be much longer, about 6 months. 6 months is a lot of time.
It is.
That is a lot of time. We need to figure out a way to streamline that. And so those are the things we've been working on for small business owners, not just in District 1, but all across our city is making sure I'm the chair of economic development. Business is everything because these small businesses, right, are the biggest employers in America, right? And guess what? If we support our small businesses, they're going to support our community by making sure that there's employment in our community. And people say, well, how do you make sure that they're going to hire people from our community? If you're a small business owner, and I am a business owner, I consider myself a small business owner, but some people are like, nah, your business, it is, according to the state standards, it is definitely small.
It is.
And so people say, well, how do you control that? And I'm just like, well, let me tell you this. I hire people that live in this community. Not because they're the greatest employees in the world. I do think that they are the greatest employees in the world. But selfishly, I know that they're going to be to work on time. I can't hire somebody who lives in downtown LA who has to commute or take some sort of transit. Now, if you got to commute to the office, more than 5 miles, I kind of look at it like, okay, this might be a hard person to hire. Are they going to be to the place on time? Because in my line of work in construction field, time is everything. When you say that you're going to have your guys there between this time and this time, you got to be there between it because time is money. And so small business owners are going to hire locally. And so that's why it's super important that we try to streamline the processes for them. And so that while they're paying that lease, because they've signed up a lease, and the property owner's not like, okay, you only got to pay until you get all the permits, right? Because they're not waiting for the city. They're saying, no, you signed this lease and now you want to operate this business. We've got to figure out a way to work with these businesses so that process is streamlined. And our planning department under Jennifer Page has been doing just that. I mean, on average, some of these smaller businesses I've seen now opening up within 90 days.
Which is great.
It's amazing because on average, it's 6 months. And if you have a brand new restaurant, you could be looking at a year and a half, 2 years. And depending on what you're putting in that restaurant. So 2 years of paying a lease while you're trying to, small business owners, they don't have that. Especially if you have kids and you have obligations, mortgage, we've got to figure out ways to streamline that. And so we're also working on ways to streamline that process to make it a lot easier for restaurant owners to open up businesses. Right now, on average, a restaurant could they get all their stuff in, right, within 8 months. And that's significantly faster than it was in previous years. On average, it was about 14 months to 2 years. So we have a concierge, Gia Nunez, who's doing amazing work, who literally holds these small business owners' hand to get them through the process, because until you've opened up a business, you really don't know all of the paperwork and everything that the city is requiring of you. So it's important that someone is, helping you get through all of that.
So we're recording this show in June, and we're approaching Father's Day. You're a father. I'm a father as well. And we both work for family businesses, which is kind of unique. What are some values that your father or your grandfather that instilled in you that really kind of that you want to cherish and you want to pass along to your children?
To be honorable was one that my father would always pass on to me. He said, if you say you're going to do something, you have to do it. If you've given someone your word, you stick to that. You follow it through. Even if it gets hard, you follow through to your word. And that is super interesting because, being in my position, right? I think that's one of the beauties of being an elected is there are people that believe that power is in the ability to say no. I believe that power is in the ability to influence change, right? You have a lot of people that work, right, for the government, et cetera, and it's a government job. Unlike in my line of work, if I mess up, I'm fired. They like, you ain't coming back. You can't. In their line of work, you might just get transferred to another position, or you stay in the same position. And so it's like, how do we motivate them to make the changes, even when those changes are no, right? So just be honorable. And the other thing is, my grandfather would always tell me is, you know, and my grandfather, my mother, and my grandfather. I know we weren't talking about mothers, but got to give shout out to mom. Um, my grandfather always tell me, to walk in your purpose and to do everything with love, even that when you feel that someone has done something to you, you are the only person that has the ability to control your feelings. And so to be able to control your feelings, to make sure you're heard, also to be honorable, and just to do everything with love and passion. I think I think if you do everything with love, you're good. You're golden for the rest of your life. I mean, there's only success for you, because everything that I've done with passion and love has always been successful for me. So
As we wind down our conversation, I have to ask this question, and I've referred to it as the Councilmember Rivas question, because I asked her a number of years ago how she does it all with kids and being on the council and having a job. And her response was, "Well, I hope you ask this question to all the men." And I said, "I will when I have the chance." So my question is, how do you do it all with you having young children and being married and being on the council? I mean, how do you make time for everything?
you know what? Family is everything to me, and so I put God first, and my family, and so everything I do is connected to my family, my wife, my children. I make sure that I block off things, and I just say, you know what? I'm going to take my girls to school every morning. That's going to be what I do. And I'm going to talk to them every morning. And I will text my daughter in the middle of a meeting to ask her how her day is going, what's going on. I also do something when I'm not even at home. I cook dinner for my children every night. So if I'm not going to be home on a Monday, I'm cooking dinner in the morning so that they know that I'm there no matter what. And so those are the things that I do to continue to let them know, because it's like, how do you do this while you're raising a family, etc.? I do this because I want my children to live in a city that's kind and full of love. And I want them to be able to push that out as well. And so if they see that from their dad, who has got a lot of things going on, and my wife, by the way, has tons of things going on. My wife just got back from Tokyo, right? So she's like working in the U.S. like 3 weeks, and then two weeks she's gone out of the U.S. and then so my wife is like the rock star of it all. She's doing all the. And so I'm like, okay, if she could do all of this and be in a whole nother country doing the work that I'm doing in the city of Pasadena, is cake. Plus, you're driving around LA enough, you'll be like, man, there's real problems in LA. Like when you get to Pasadena, I'm like, oh, this is good work. You know what I'm saying? And we have great neighbors. And also, I would say my residents have a lot to do with my success and being able to help, because, and I say this because my residents are willing to tell me and have the comfort level of telling me what the issues are. City council members, and I'm going to say this to anybody who's listening, city council members, elected officials, anywhere, are not mind readers. No one was, maybe there's somebody that's a mind reader. I don't subscribe to that, but somebody will tell them that they're mind readers, so I'm not going to tell them that they're not. Um, but it is important that if there's something that is important to you, that you reach out to your elected official to tell them what it is and see how they could accomplish to fix it. Not only give them your problems, but also give a list of solutions. And a lot of my neighbors give some solutions, which makes it a lot easier to help. And when those solutions are not aligned with our city policies, it's like, okay, Now, how do we change the policy to get the solution that the community member wants? And that goes to the small business owner, that goes to sidewalk repairs. I mean, at one point in time, every sidewalk, right, was the responsibility of the, and you have districts, right? Some districts where homes don't turn over. You have people that lived in that same home for 70 years, right? Their father, their grandfather, now their children are living in that same home. And the home triggers sidewalk repairs, right? When you sell it or construction. If you haven't done any of that, I mean, you 70 years, this tore up sidewalk, and it's like, no, someone who's invested 70 years or longer in our community, we should be making sure that they feel when they walk out, their sidewalk is taken care of. They can walk up and down their street because they've invested in this community. So the neighbors, a lot of the reason this to answer long-winded answer to how am I able to be a father and do all these things is please, people, don't think that we mind readers out here because we're not. At least I'm not. Maybe some of my other colleagues are, but I'm not a mind reader, so I appreciate all of the concerns and emails, and also those emails that are the good emails about, which is far and few in between, but they're really nice when they do come. Are the ones that are like, hey, I see what the city's doing over here, and I really like that. You guys should do more of that. Those emails are really helpful too because you want to, when there are programs or initiatives that the city is doing and you think it's a really good thing, you should let the city know that you think it's a really good thing so that those things do not get discontinued.
Right. Final two questions. This is my kind of standard question, which is if you could design a perfect day in Pasadena or District 1, from breakfast to late night, what would you do? Where would you go? And what would you eat and drink?
Oh, okay. So I would start breakfast at the Hilton. They have the best pancakes in town. By the way, any hotel is going to have the best breakfast no matter where you go because that's pretty much all hotels do is make breakfast. So, so I would say Pancakes at the Hilton. I've been going there for all my life, and some of the employees there have been working there for over 35 years. So most of them know me when I was in a stroller. Um, then I would take a hike through the Lower Royal all the way up to Hahamonga. Me and my daughter did this hike, and we were just like, wow, we didn't know this was continuous. Like, I never knew it was continuous because I'm just used to like driving to the Lower Royal and then doing a loop and then driving back home or driving to Hahamonga and then doing a loop and then driving back home, right? Like, I mean, that's kind of, but me and my daughter, we took a hike from the Lower Royal all the way up to Hahamonga and then back home. Um, and I was like, it was a long hike, but it was definitely something well worth it and made us hungry. And so we didn't have lunch that day. We probably should have had lunch, but I would say the hike in the Lower Royal to Hahamonga is definitely something I would do in Pasadena. If there's an event at the Rose Bowl, I would say you've got to experience that. That was one of the big things that I worked on when I first got elected was making sure that every kid in PUSD had the opportunity to take a field trip to the Rose Bowl Stadium. Um, so because it's their stadium, it's the crown of the city, and it's their crown, and our city is the crown city, of course. Um, so I would say Hilton, Lower Royal, um, event at the Rose Bowl. You got to go if you're gonna get lunch. You got to have lunch at Perry's Joint.
Agreed.
It's just you got to have lunch at Perry's Joints. If you decide that you're gonna have dinner, right? Anywhere you're gonna have dinner, um, I suggest you cook at home and pick up some pasta from Semolina because her pasta is really good. It's amazing and actually inspired me to make my own pasta. And I would buy. I used to get flour from for a while because she told me you have to have semolina flour in the pasta to make it like a little more al dente, and I was like, really? And it's a game changer when you add that flour when you're making your own homemade pasta, and I recommend going by there and checking that out. And then if you have time, while you're there, if you just want to get yourself a snack, Home State or Highlight Coffee, Highlight's got some great pastries. I'm not a coffee drinker, but everybody says that coffee is amazing at Highlight, and they also say it's really good at Stumptown. I don't drink coffee, so it's like the only thing. The reason I don't drink coffee, anybody listening, it's the only thing that does not smell like it tastes. Like the taste and smell do not add up. I cook a lot. I'm a big cooker. Like coffee is so bitter, but it smells amazing. And it's just one of those things. I'm just like, it messes up my mind. I'm just like, no, this it shouldn't taste like this. It tastes so much better. But then it's like, this is disgusting.
I love cooking at home.
Okay,
I love that. I love that as the way to end of the day. Well, the last question I have to ask this is that you're notorious for wearing suits and bright colored sneakers. And how do you pull that off so easily?
I believe I could only be who I am. I try to be someone else when I first got elected because I was young and I was like, I'm going to emulate this person. I want to sound like this person. I'm going to talk like a robot and I'm going to write everything that I'm going to write down and I'm going to be scripted. And my father said that you have to be yourself. You can't be anyone else. God has only made one of you and you got to stick with that. And so part of who I am and I told my dad when I was younger, if you want me to wear this suit, I don't wear these shoes that are comfortable because I'm not walking around in those slippery sliding shoes because they got no traction, you know? And I see old men falling all the time in these church sliders. So I'm not going to be wearing those. And so I've been wearing tennis shoes ever since. Now that I'm in this position, I would say politics is a contact sport and you never know when you need to run or jump a hurdle. So so be prepared, right? And also, I told Andre Coleman after my first election to school board, Andre asked me, it was going into a runoff. And he said, well, Tyron, I had a suit and tie on in my dress shoes, and it was at City Hall. This is when the city did all the ballot counting. And he said, Tyron, so what's going to look like? What are you going to look like going into the runoff? I said, I got my running shoes on, baby. I'm ready to go. I don't know what everybody else is doing. I'm tied up. I'm laced in. You know? I'm coming out these blocks, and I said, I'm looking to win. And I remember that, and I said it just like that, and that's how I feel about life. I think that everything that we do in life, we have to put love into it and just go out and be ready to run and be ready to win. It's a marathon, but you got to have some comfortable shoes on, all right?
That's good advice. That's a good way to close this conversation. So, Tyrone, thank you for being such a great part of Pasadena, for your leadership in the community, and for coming on the podcast. I greatly appreciate it.
Man, I appreciate being here, and love Pasadena. I love you, brother. I appreciate you having me, and just everybody continue to love on one another. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Come back anytime.
Absolutely. We got to do part 2.
Yes, we do.
There's more. I mean,
there is more.
I'm like never-ending conversation. You know?
There's like 8 pages that we can get to. We'll hold you to that.
All right. No, seriously do.
All right.
Okay.
So continuing our collaboration, the featured song is All Right Here by Pasadena's own The Next Doors. Follow them on social media and at nextdoorsmusic.com. I want to thank everyone here at Pasadena Media, George, Chris, Bobby, Liza, and especially Terry, Jeff, Abigail, Sharon, and Jasiri for their special guidance and assistance. For more information about Pasadena Media, please visit pasadenamedia.org. And to support the podcast, please visit thecrowncitypodcast.com and share your thoughts. Until next time, please remember to stay well, stay connected to your community, and as always, I will see you around town.